Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, you know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Welcome to episode 245 in Inside HBCU Sports Lab radio show podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports. From institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetic, facilitate the story of the HBCU athletic program in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington out on the assignment. I'm not sure what Charles is doing, but it looks like he's having some fun. Charles, are you, man? You know what's going on with this obvious. What you doing, man? What you doing?
Oh, you know, I'm out here at courtside, Texas Southern and Southern right now getting on. We're in the second quarter. Texas Southern's up 27 to 16. We're gotten off to a hot start here in the second quarter. A couple of things to take notice of. Adrian Aiken, one of Texas Southern's leading scorers. One of the top scorers in the SWAC. He already has 8 points. And another top scorer in the SWAC. Their offense is really cooking that far.
Yeah, man, it's fascinating. So the game, we should have some guests come in and give us some insights. If you see Charles coming in, give us some insights right there and let you know so you can get a piece of the action. Behind them, it's going down, and yes, they're live. We're here. So I can't say we're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live. While we are sending a signal live at KCOA 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Fame and Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Bartow Arena, Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, Bartow Arena, exactly.
Hey, it is what it is. So we're live. We're live. This is a live remote. So we can give it to you. So today's episode of Inside HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THE Agency, LLC. THE Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. We have a lot in store for you today. Professor Drew, I can ask you, how are you doing today?
Jealous, because y'all are in Birmingham, the Bartow Arena, and I'm just here in South Georgia, just sitting up here, had my ESPN Plus on, but you know, obviously y'all catching the atmosphere live. I'm just catching the atmosphere via osmosis.
And I'm actually in the media room, so if we have to shut down and get ready for the interview, we'll have to make it do what it do. But we'll see how long this lasts. But shout out to all the lab listeners out there. We're doing something different for you. We told you we're going to keep bringing you excitement, and you'll see a little more of this during football season as well. You've seen us do the live remotes to give you the football media day, to see you the celebration bowl. Now we're in here giving you the SWAC basketball tournament, and we're going to travel around, give you some other HBCU conferences out there and give you that love. But let me give a shout out to those that all make this possible in terms of supporting it. Sherman Miller is on here, Michael Ford, Herman Skelton, brother Sherman. Let me give you a little out for that lecture time for Michael Ford. Ricky Burton's on here. Michael Ford says, been here in class waiting for the professor. Yeah, Benjamin Richardson, we're here now. Kay Johnson say, yay, time for class 245. We got Anthony Weston in here. What's up, everyone? Yeah, we're going to check out the Alabama A&M Bulldogs and FAMU later tonight. That's the men's game that tips off after this one. We'll give you some updates and things of that nature. That's much later, but we'll be in here and we can give you updates as we come back next week. This is the G. Hashtag this is the G. The G got it done on the men's side against Southern. Man, that was an exciting game going back and forth. Then you talk about the game last night, Alcorn and Prairie View. Oh my goodness. One for the ages. Mary Allen says hello. Who else we got in here? Thomas White Jr. is checking us out. What's up, Tom? Jalen Rice, Christopher Darrell. I know that. Is that easy in here? Come at the lab. Sierra Gordon. Who else we got shut up? Brian Lowe. Jackson in here. Martin in here. Let's see what else. We got Willie Alex Hines. Good evening, Dr. Will. Professor Bishop, Professor A.D. Drew. I'm virtually covering the MEAC tournament. All right, give us some updates on what's going on there. We're going to give some updates as well, but tell us what the atmosphere is down there. Go ahead and type in here and let us know. Arvin Parker, Edwin DeWhite, John Jenkins. Let's go get it into the show and see what we got as we continue to move forward. Let's take our first break, and we'll come back right back after this break. We're going to keep rolling. You want to roll a little bit? But let's get into some news as we move into that. Charles, what type of news do you want to get off your chest in terms of what has been behind the scene? What is all the talk in terms of what you've heard over the start of things yesterday and today? You're on mute, Charles.
Talked about it during this portion of the basketball season, talking about the parity that we've seen over the years on the women's side. And
Texas Southern foul charge number 4,
pretty much everything is wild. Anything this tough, it has come down to the wire. Heartbreaking last night for Prairie View and Alcorn. We saw Prairie View with a late lead, and Alcorn fight back and take that game. I tell you what, each game that we've watched, it has been nip and tuck. Even Jackson State's women going up against their opponent. It was a tight game down the field. But I tell you what, it's been fun. This one right here, I promise you, it's a 4-5 team. It's going to tighten up.
Yeah,
under a minute now before halftime.
That's been the time of the show in terms of how things just tighten up and converge. But we said that going to the tournament. You even said that a matchup that gave you some pause was UAPB and Jackson State, and it lived up to it. I told you don't worry about it, though. As I was sitting next to you, I saw you tighten up a little bit. And then I thought you were just as big of a fan as any person. I seen you doing your talk about last night. But it was a lot of folks that, you talk about this time of the season and the underdog. You can tell that a lot of folks were wanting to see Prairie View get it done, not necessarily because they were fans of Prairie View, but because of the underdog and they saw how hard they fought, but just couldn't get it done. Kudos to the Braves in terms of a team, regular season champions. They showed you the heart of a champion. With that being said, I just want to get into this because this is brought up, and it's a good point. We're trying to talk about is the inconsistency of the referees, not necessarily bad calls, but just the inconsistency on even within a game on one side or the other throughout the game, even on the different side of the team. It's just been really inconsistent in some ways. Not that I've seen it cause a change in the game, but it does disrupt your ability to watch the game in different ways.
Yeah, I think the game has a little urgency. We've seen some good content that we thought fouls should have been called. We've seen some nip-tuck fouls. So I think that's been sort of an underlying thing, like you said, inconsistency sometimes in the calls. But it has made for another subplot in the game with the Dale. So I think all of this is cover on the right, and I'm expecting even more as we go towards championship status.
Hey, give us a score update before we go to Drew and ask him some thoughts on a couple of things.
First thing, score right on the 20 seconds left. Texas Southern's up 29-26 over Southern. Like I mentioned, Tyler Bridge is only 2 points thus far. But Adriana Abel, she's been carrying the scoring load thus far for the Texas Southern Tigers. The Southern Jaguars are thinking over the time.
Man, appreciate that. Anthony Weston was not quite as nice as us. This is really pissing you off. Maybe that's it. AD Drew, I know you've been all in the department from watching things. What has been your thoughts on everything thus far?
the competitiveness of not only the SWAC tournament, but the MEAC tournament. And what I mean by competitive is not the fact that everything's pretty much gone chalk, like you thought, but there's been no blowouts at this point in time in the tournament. Even your 1-8 games were competitive both on the men and the women's side of both of these tournaments. Obviously, we know Jackson State women had the scare with UAPB hanging around to the last minute last night, and then Prairie View seeing an off-on into overtime. But in the MEAC, you've had pretty much the same thing, just the competitive nature of tournament basketball. You saw a Delaware State team that have been 0 for the year gave Norfolk a good run last night. And then, oh, by the way, we did have the upset today with Howard losing earlier today. So just the competitiveness of these teams. A lot of them beaten for the third time. They say it's hard to beat a team 3 times, and this shows why.
Yeah, great points. As you see them going into the locker room, good action by Charles as Texas Southern is going in the locker room halftime. Let's go to Charles, at least get us the halftime score. I know a lot of y'all are watching the game and watching us, but just for those that are not, you're moving around, you want to get into action. Charles, give us the halftime score and update.
You
go
take
out,
your mute.
Go, you on mute.
Sorry about that. Texas Southern up on Southern first 1 to 26. Thus far, 8 down.
Appreciate you putting in that extra work.
Yeah, just totally can't talk to you.
Sideline, you bring in some of that deep pregame show with your sideline report. You bringing that inside the HBCU Sports Lab, man. I feel great, man. You got one up here. You talking about clinical professor. We may start man. Putting it into practice. Professor of the practice. I don't know what we want to call you, but we're just gonna call you Professor Bishop. How about that? With that being said, oh yeah, let's talk about this. Squeeze us in here a little bit. We had 4 HBCU football players that competed in the 22 NFL Combine. Joshua Williams, Jacoby Durant, and J. Tyree Carter, as well as who am I missing here? In terms of those, but I know the big for a lot of Jacoby Durant time that he ran really had a lot of people buzzing. Obviously, you have FAMU quarterback. I can't think of his name right now, top of my head, but he actually had a good time. Who?
Elijah Bell.
Yeah, Elijah Bell. I know Drew was there to get him.
Marcus Bell.
I just mad because they got the prayer to go get it. So, FAMU, South Carolina State. And I'm telling you, with that being said, we're going to use you for a little while and ask you about Isaiah in terms of what are your thoughts, in terms of what you're hearing of how he performed at the combine. And I'm going to call to talk about his about the combine.
And it's kind of hard for me to hear in the background. Will you ask me about the combine there, Doc?
Yeah, just ask you about Isaiah. Tell me what you heard and thought about Isaiah.
Oh, I mean, we already knew what this brother could do.
That's right.
Anybody in HBCU football knew what this brother could do. But for him to go in, put up those kind of numbers, 40 times and cone drills and everything else that they do, more power to them. And, the one thing I think is good for these athletes, especially these HBCU athletes, is, we know what they can do on the field. The question is, what do they do when they get into the interviews in the 15 minutes that the teams get to talk to them while they are there? Are they coming through articulate, educated? Because those are the words that they use. Is he articulate? Is he educated? Can he handle himself? Does he have character? Will he fit into the culture of our locker room? Those are the things that those general managers and those scouts are looking for in those, and unfortunately, all it takes is one stutter or misplaced word in your interview, and that's their excuse to eliminate you. So, I hope that they did well in that portion of it, because we know what they can do on the field.
I'm gonna go to you, Charles. Same question, but talk a little bit about the coach. How excited did you hear everybody talk about what you're hearing, his ability to show up and show out with that 4.38 seconds in the 40-yard dash?
Well, I think that was a theme that we saw within the scouting combine this past combine. The 40 time was really awesome. Starting to coach career. He did not do anything. I tell you what, we took a look at sort of we saw them celebrate the ball. He's great. The Jackson State receivers did the job. Celebrate the ball. But I tell you what, he was a really, really special player. Really showed himself tremendously over there.
Are you selfie ready? Get your phones out and pull up the Q audio app. Enjoy the real spikes up the jab.
Good stuff, Charles. Let me say this. I didn't hear about this, but Anthony Weston has confirmed this. They said Akil Glass did really well during his pro day. He is quoting and saying Glass and A&M said that he had a wonderful pro day and was making all the throws. So that is great news. Again, as Professor Drew would say, that is the expectation. That's what we saw all season long. So it's good that he had a good workout in terms of that. Buzzwords for he's black and can't communicate effectively. Yeah, you can hear that. Unfortunately, that still is out there. I actually got a call, just to give you an update. I got a call in regards to, in terms of the New York Times was doing an interview with me or wanting to get some quotes in terms of asking me about them throwing out the Wonderlic, right? And they also were talking about some of these other tests they did at the NFL. What does that mean? So, I thought it from an academic perspective what's going on. We got a guest here. I want to belabor the point. So we're going to transition to bring her on to the camera as we talk about in here, talk to everybody. So give us your thoughts in terms of the tournament thus far, in terms of what you saw. You can give us a little update in terms of this first half first. You can kind of go back and just talk in general.
All right. So right now, Texas Southern women and Southern women are playing, and it's a really close game. At the half, Texas Southern is up by 5. It's a real battle out there. Number 4, the names are escaping me right now, but is doing really well every time she's in. She's able to shut down Southern's main player, number 25. But when she's not in there, 25 is really dominating.
So that's Fleming for Southern.
Yeah.
Chloe
Fleming.
Shutting down.
She got
Ashley Austin is talking about Texas Southern.
Okay.
And they're down a little bit.
Yes. And the short point guard. So it's an exciting match. Overall, the tournament has really been exciting.
A little bit of that soccer tournament. Exciting match.
Or is it tennis, Doc?
Across the board, I'm just looking at the level of play, and the athletes is just continuing to elevate consistently, and of course the transfer portal helps. But just it's exciting games. No, there's no blowouts. My teams are out for you, but watching Coop, the semi-refined Coop, doing her thing. It's just really exciting. It just brings me back to the times when I played conference tournament time and just having that different mentality, switching to just the most fierce competitor I can be. You see people get in each other's faces, talking their mess. It's nice to see. It's nice to see the passion and fighting for the W. So, yeah.
Let me follow up with the questionnaire when you talk about having to have that experience. What was that intensity like for you? Or what were some of the things? Take us behind from a player's perspective. I know the different players do different things, but at least we can get your perspective. What did you do like the evening before, the tournament? or a big game, I guess you could say. And then leading up maybe into that morning, what were some of the things that you considered doing during that process?
Well, for me, as you could probably tell, I've always been somewhat of a Zen type person, and I've always needed to be just calm because I felt like if I got too hyped, I would exert too much energy and then I'd be tired at the tip-off. But for me, it was really important to get shots up. I would be in the gym about 2.5 hours before anyone got in there if I could, and get my regimen up. And that's pretty much this system of shooting at the 5 points, 5 points out. So pretty much shooting at every angle of the floor. So by the time game time came, I was just ready to get the ball and release. So, and then using visualization is a big thing for me because I believe in manifesting your life. And so I would imagine myself making all my shots and crossing people over and elbowing and getting the rebound. Each time I came into the tournament that when I wasn't hurt, that we always had the number one position. So understanding the responsibility of that and not wanting to get knocked off or embarrassed, and knowing the goal was to really get to the NCAA, it just really made me transform to a space of understanding what it is to be a champion and then utilizing my teammates because we had some really great
Three times.
Yeah. And I had some really great teammates, really great guards. I didn't have to do everything. A lot of athletes now, you have to be the point and the shooting guard and the forward. By the time you're ready to score, you all out of gas. But I was able to be released because I had good guards. So just knowing the strategy, locking in, and getting to a quiet space, and just being ready to leave it all on the court. Either you win or you die.
I like it. To your point, let me follow up one, and then we'll transition and we'll get into some of these games and give people updates. I know our followers will update, but just for those that come back and sometimes watch this later, you had the opportunity to call the games at the SIAC.
Yeah.
Many people may not realize that you do that as well in terms of the talent that you provide. We're working on trying to make sure you can call some games in here in the future. With that being said, most certainly. With that being said, tell us a little bit about, because we also have the SIAC followers, CIAA followers on the BAC followers on here to check this out. Tell us a little bit about the SIAC. What was that experience? What was it like for our fans that have not had an opportunity to check out the SIAC in terms of being there? Some followed it, obviously, from a television perspective. Share a little bit about it.
Man, it was a really great tournament. When you're in the building, you forget that you're at a Division II style tournament because the level of talent is really great. You see the same passion, you see the same fire in these athletes. Similar kind of games, upset, March Madness. So there was some madness going on there. Everybody expected on the men's side for it to be Miles College and Morehouse. And they both were upset by Benedict and Savannah State. So just seeing that and being there in that environment, some bands were there, cheerleaders were there. It was just really exciting. There's nothing like the HBCU spirit. When you hear that bass, when you feel the energy of the band, when you see the cheerleaders flipping all over the place and pop, lock, and drop it, just to experience that is really, really fun. On top of that, seeing great quality of basketball and seeing the emotional aspect of it because this is the last game for a lot of the players who are seniors and had their seasons interrupted by COVID and all these things. So it was really great to see schools like Benedict and Clark Atlanta and Morehouse and all these schools that you don't typically get to see in the SWAC. So it was really great. It was really great, and I'm biased, but I think the SWAC is just that much more powerful in the way that we deliver what we do. And just if you come here every game, they're bringing the energy. The fans are coming in, supporting. The kids are screaming. Everybody's excited. So it's great to be in an environment like this after being in isolation for so long, or abiding by all the protocols, and then understanding what's going on in the world that's really heavy. It's really cool and fun to come and share in this communion together and just be excited together.
Thank you for sharing that. And this is a great point when you were able to shout out some of the schools names. I like that. That was good. But as Charles is showing you, they're warming up, getting ready for the second half. I did think it was neat to see the floor, with the fact that the SWAC invested in bringing in the floor and having it done with the logos of the 12 members of the SWAC, 6 on one side, 6 on the other. The SWAC tournament logo, their Cricket Wireless SWAC basketball tournament presented by Mountain Dew. In terms of sponsorships, I thought that was really nice to see that. I did want to get into a little bit of discussion and give an update as we get in there. And so you're welcome to stay around and take a discussion, or as I know you're out there covering it, that's up to you. Don't want to impede on too much of your time there.
No problem. This is a little bit of a bittersweet moment to me, though, because this is the court that I tore my ACL on, not the actual court, but this arena. So I'm facing some of my trauma coming here, but I'm all healed up. It's for sure. I can hoop now without a brace, so it's all good. But thank you for allowing me to share this time with you all.
Man, that's good that you took us into that. One and other 3-time SWAC champion, Gaati Werema, giving us some insight in terms of the basketball world. Somebody that actually played the game. It's always neat for us on the media side to get to talk to people that have actually done it.
Yeah.
As you in the media as well. So appreciate you. Appreciate all the time and love. Let's get into this. Talking about the MEAC in terms of some updates there. Wanted to talk about the men game. I think Drew talked about this a little bit, but you had Norfolk State on the men's side, the number 1 seed, defeating number 8 seed Delaware State 74-66. You had the number 2 seed Howard being upset by the number 7 seed Cotton State 59-57. These were Wednesday games. On the women's side, you had number 8 Delaware State losing to number 1 Howard University 87-51. Everything went to chalk in terms of the women after that. You had Norfolk State, the number 2 seed, defeating the number 7 seed North Carolina Central. That was 58-52. So those were your MEAC updates on SWAC in terms of what took place Wednesday. A lot of folks have seen a little bit of this, but we'll tell you about it anyway. You had the number 1 seed, Alcorn State, defeat Prairie View, the number 8 seed, 64-63 in overtime. It was a awesome game there. You had number 2, Texas Southern, defeat number 7, Jackson State, 54-50. We were literally on the plane watching the first part of that game, Charles and I, and Jackson State was leading when we had to turn it off at 8 minutes, 2 points, and we kind of looked at each other and were like, we got the message as we landed, and it was that Texas Southern found a way to come back and get it done. Anyway, it was exciting to kind of live through that even on the plane. I was going to do the internet thing on the plane, and the internet was not working on the plane. Can you believe that? Ready to take over. Number 1 seed on the women's side, Jackson State, got a bit of a scare, even though at the end they really pulled off. But it was a very entertaining game. Number 1 defeating number 8, that's Jackson State over UAPB on the women's side, 78-67. Number 2, Alabama A&M gets upset by number 7, Grambling State, 62-54. So a couple of upsets here and there, close games through all these, taking you to Thursday, and then I'll get you all to give you updates on any of these games you choose. On Thursday, you have the women, because in the MEAC, they actually played a women's game as a set in terms of session. They played those in the morning and they played the men in the afternoon. In the SWAC, it's a little different. Many people may be familiar with this. They play a women's game in the morning and then a men's game as a session, and then they do the same thing in the afternoon. So women on Thursday, in terms of the MEAC, you had slight upset, 5-4. Maryland Eastern Shore over Coppin State, 73-65. You did have the number 3 seed getting it done, Morgan State defeating number 6 seed South Carolina State, 66-53. Then, in terms of Thursday action, we can give you the latest updates that are going on here. We have women. We had number 4, Alabama State, 60, defeating Prairie A&M 58. The number 5 seed staying the chalk. You had obviously Texas Southern. You got the halftime score there, getting ready for the second half. But in terms of what's going on there, little thoughts in terms of the action there. Let me know your thoughts and give you an update. We'll give you some MEAC updates in terms of what's taking place Thursday on the MEAC side. Let me go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts in terms of any of those games that you want to kind of dive into?
Well, obviously, I think the top 4 games, upset there over Alabama. But I think just coming out of there. Dr. we were talking a little bit about football earlier. I wanted to show you one of the goats, one of the greatest of all time. He's taking in the game here. Willie Tyler, former Mississippi Valley State quarterback. And SWAC Hall of Famer Rob J there. But just wanted to make sure I brought those guys in. If you know anything about SWAC football history, Jerry Rice had to catch the ball from somebody, which was the great Willie Tyler. So just wanted to make sure I brought that out real quick. So, but
I like this. See, that's what you can do that when you're doing live action. You can really let them know how it is. Good job, Joe.
No doubt. But yeah, I think that was the one that jumped out. And then obviously here, Alabama A&M, the number 2 seed, falling yesterday. The Grambling played a tremendous game, strength game, and they knocked off a team that I thought presents some issues to the number 1 seed, Gaati State. So Gaati State doesn't have to worry about Alabama A&M.
Let me go to you, Professor Drew. Before you do that, let me give you an update in terms of the evening session. You have Morgan State 66, South Carolina State 56. That's with 8:38 left in the second half. So it's about 3/4 of the way through. So we give you the update and see how that's going. In terms of the games from Wednesday and early Thursday morning games, thus far, what are your thoughts on any of these games, Professor Drew?
Number one, did I tell y'all Grambling was going to be the team to watch in the bottom half of that SWAC bracket?
You sure did, and I agree with you.
On the what day was that? We did so many shows this week, Doc. But whichever day that was, I told
Tuesday.
Okay, Grambling was going to be the team to watch on the bottom half and be the one that could speak out of there and present problems to either Texas Southern or Alcorn if those 2 teams come out on top. But that also brings me up to my next point. What kind of legs will these 2 teams have in this semifinal game on tomorrow after being tested in the first round? That's going to be a real interesting thing. Thank God. Maybe the SWAC knew what they were doing by having the 1s and the 2s play and get the day off, so that they have a chance to recuperate and get the legs back up under them. Because both those teams were pushed to the wire on yesterday. Also, I agree with Charles. I thought Alabama A&M, especially as hot as they were coming down the stretch, was going to be one of those teams that was going to be there to challenge Jackson State. So with Alabama A&M gone, I really think if anybody is left that can challenge Jackson State on the women's side, probably Alabama State. That's probably the only team that I could see left that could possibly challenge Jackson State on the women's side. I don't know what you think about that, y'all. They've already knocked off UAPB. Alabama A&M is gone.
I think Alabama State definitely. I don't know if you see over my shoulder. Alabama they come in to my far right. Jackson State taking in this game all game throughout. Women are also located over there in the corner. So I tell you what, a lot of teams have interest in this 4-5 matchup. So definitely want to bring that out.
Yeah, I like that. And Texas Southern had their close game with Jackson State. You know, that's something they can do. State is the question. Speaking of Texas Southern, as they're playing now, the Texas Southern men had a big interest in that 4-5 Southern Grambling game that Drew talked about. Keep your eyes on Grambling. So it's interesting in that matchup. Obviously, things don't go to play, but Was it one of those things where you would think Texas Southern was pulling for Grambling, and you'd be like, watch out what you ask for? Because they defeated Grambling twice, but they lost to Southern twice. So it'll be interesting when you kind of have these little mixed matches that you're thinking about as things are going on. So that's fascinating to me. And so, Charles, before we get into the games that are set for tomorrow, maybe on particular Friday games, and then we'll make sure that people know where they can catch the championship game and the rest of the tournament. With the Tigers back here messing with Charles, I like it. I like it. Hero, big Tigers. Look at it. It's been good in terms of institutions bringing their cheerleaders. Alabama State even brought their band out on a short drive, but you've seen Texas Southern bring their cheerleaders and mascots there. You've seen Prairie View bring their cheerleaders along. They came in yesterday to support the men's and women's team. So it's good for those that have come in early. Not only so much to cheer on the folks, but it's great because they're giving these students a different experience about traveling, getting to go to a different city for a lot of them. First time some of them staying in hotels into these things. So it's good. And would love to see the fact that even some of the student pep bands, I know they used to travel, to see if we can see that come back. Talking about that is also a shout out to the city of Birmingham and those HBCU alumni that have brought their junior high and high school students out to some of these other games. I thought that was fascinating to see and a good look in terms of what's taking place there. Charles, give us an update real quick, and then we'll get into some of these matchups that are coming up based on what is taking place.
Yeah, this game is tightening up. Just like Texas Southern Tigers won on top of Texas Southern right at the 6-minute mark in the first quarter.
Interesting. It's one of those games that'll be like that. Obviously, go ahead.
I was going to ask y'all a question before we get into the next portion. You know, this is the first time in a long while that the SWAC has played all the tournament games at one site. You know, for the last number of years, the tournament, the opening rounds have been at the institution, at the higher seeded institution. So, you know, obviously it looks like early on this was a good move, but you know, what for me not being there, can you kind of describe how that has been different than the tournaments that you guys have been at in the past and the atmosphere and all that stuff with these opening round matches all up under one roof this year?
I will say this, for me, it's pretty much what I've seen, and really this is at any level, that your early match of games, Wednesday and Thursday, are partially attended, especially the morning session, because you're talking about a culture and a community that has to work and do not necessarily like to take off other than when they're sick or they planning to take family vacation. So they kind of save those times. Don't necessarily have those jobs where you can move around and take off and much more of that. So that's something in terms of fascinating to watch out what's going on there. So those are some things that I've seen across the board, but specifically here. It will be more fascinating to see tonight with Alabama A&M. Thursday night, you have a team that should have a lot of fans in the Birmingham area. You might even get some people that come down from Huntsville. And then Friday is when it really starts to light up, certainly if there's a team from the region. So that's what I'm taking a eyeball to see what takes place tonight and certainly tomorrow. Saturday always does what it does. If anybody is less than 5 hours away, if their team's in the champion, you can bet that they're going to get up in the morning and travel to see the team. So that's really a given in terms of what it looks like. But great question in terms of what's going on there. As we, get to the last part of the show, the fourth quarter, as we like to say, kind of wrap things up. I did want to talk about the rest of the matchups. We told you about the Morgan State, South Carolina State score that's going on. Tonight you have the 3-6 matchup between North Carolina Central on the men's side and Maryland Eastern Shore. Also on the men's side for the SWAC, you have what we kind of talked about a little bit in terms of potentially attendance is Alabama A&M and FAMU. That's going to be fascinating because you have the newest program in there, and actually in a lot of ways the last two of the 4 expansion programs are in this matchup. An old framework of the SIAC type of games that used to take up many, many moves ago. So it's interesting to see what that looks like. Teams have been solid all year long. team, Alabama A&M, has really played well of late. FAMU was steady all year long, so they have the upper seed. But it's one of those fascinating 6-3 matchups, so I'm interested in that. Now, to set things up for tomorrow in terms of what we have on the MEAC, you have 11 o'clock a.m. ESPN Plus game that will feature the number 1 seed Howard versus Maryland Eastern Shore. Let me go to you, Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of that matchup? Will it stay chalk, or could you see an upset?
Well, anything is possible. You know, obviously, if I was wagering on that game, I would put my money on the Bison. But because when you think about it, you had those 1 through 3 that were tied. You know, in a very reactive way. You had seeds 1, 2, and 3 with identical records. You had number 4 right there just behind them, a game or 2 behind those seeds. And then you had a drop off. But who's here? One of those bottom 4 teams that we forgot about. So was that all that they had? They got their 1 win, and now are they happy that they got their 1 win and return to reality? Or will Maryland Eastern Shore continue to play above their head? That's the question that has to be there. We know Howard is the more talented team, but do you almost take your opponent too lightly? Because you know as well as I do, if you let a team that should not be playing with you stay around too long, anything can happen. And in the second semifinal, look, these teams, number 2 and number 3, easily could be the number 1. So that might be the championship matchup per se.
Good point. Charles, that second matchup he's talking about is the number 2 Norfolk State team faces the number 3 Morgan State team. Obviously, the 1 versus 5. Because of the slight upset, you have Howard and Maryland Eastern Shore. Tell me your thoughts on these 2 matchups. That 2 versus 3 is a 1 o'clock game on ESPN Plus.
You broke up on the we're talking about the men or the women?
This is the women. The women are number 1 Howard versus number 5 Maryland Eastern Shore. And then you have also on the women for the MEAC is the number 2 Norfolk State versus the number 3 Morgan State.
I think the Norfolk State Morgan State is the matchup, but I'm going to go with the higher seed in that one, and definitely with regards to Howard and Maryland Eastern Shore. Although Maryland Eastern Shore, going up to the 1 seed, it's going to be a little bit too much.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: if Instagram and how you entertain your fans and a group of ladies that are having a great time as they playing collegiate basketball, I give a shout out to the state in terms of that. May be the reason I give them the edge, as I follow them on Instagram and they're always doing the nice little TikTok dances. They do it in such a positive way. Obviously, in terms of the SWAC, also with the women, you have the number 4 Alabama State team against the number 7. Because of that upset, Grambling State. That is the 11 o'clock game, also on ESPN Plus. Obviously, you have the number 1 Jackson State team at 5:30, which will face off against the number 3 versus number 6. Before you call answer that question, give us an update in terms of the score, and then tell us your thoughts on these 2 matchups for the SWAC.
The score right now is tied up 39-39. Southern has gotten themselves right back into this game at 57. When you take a look at the matchup tomorrow, I think it's Jackson State versus them. I think they have faced adversity going down the stretch, and they have experienced it all. So I think going forward, a whole lot more confident that Jackson State will take down that Ayana Manuel, who are a little score down. I just think that this is the idea. They check all.
Good stuff. Who hit the big basket? Who just scored? Something that she heard.
Texas Southern just knocked down a 3, so the score now 42-39, 2:56 left.
Woo, boy, it's going to be a blue. We're going to have to get off this show soon. But eyes on that. with that being said, let me go to you, Drew. I just told you, SWAC 4 versus 7, Alabama State, Grambling State. Number 1 Jackson State is waiting on the number 3 versus number 6. It looks like it may go down to the wire. Look at the type of action, hustling, getting on the court to get it done. What are your thoughts on those two matchups?
The matchup favors the team that played on
Thursday.
The team that played on Wednesday.
I like that you brought that up
because
and if you can get the upset, you get to stay off your feet for an extra day. Kind of scout the teams you're going to play and see what they're doing. Weaknesses in terms of live scouting that sets you up for Friday. Great point. Continue with.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get with. And when you go back and look at it, Grambling women played Wednesday. They'll be playing Alabama State, who played today, who was tested today, 2-point basketball game. So, you know, how quickly can they recover and play? And correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, that's an early game. Am I right about that?
Yeah, the Grambling in Alabama State is 11 a.m. game.
So
while the Jackson State game goes to 5:30. Yep.
Right. So not quite 24 hours of recovery time. So, you know, and with you not being on campus, being able to get those treatment, get the cold tub, and get some of those other things that you would normally do on campus to help your body recover fast, and especially when you're not used to playing back to back, because the SWAC schedule really does not call for back to back in their schedule. How quickly can those teams who played today recover? That's gonna be the question.
Let me jump in real quick, AJ. We took the 45-43. Southern went up by 1 for the first time tonight. A huge point by Southern. Central people get defense for a bit. Only 9 players. But I tell you what, Austin, you have 12 15.
All right, let's go into our last. Good stuff. Let's go into our last discussion in terms of the men's side of the semifinal. We have the number 1 Norfolk State against number 4, number 5. That's going on now, as I told you, in terms of what's taking place, and it looks like it's going to be Morgan State. Then you have number 7 with the upset over Howard. College State is waiting on the number 6 and number 3 team, which is a 7:30 game, which will be fascinating when we talk about what's going to go on there in terms of that matchup. And that's going to be North Carolina Central versus Maryland Eastern Shore versus the SWAC. You have Grambling State. Well, let's go ahead and look at the MEAC. Let me stick with you, Drew, in terms of those matchups on the MEAC side, semifinals. What are your thoughts in terms of these potential matchups as they seem to be shaking out? The Morgan State South Carolina State game is tightened up. It's 74-71. Morgan State over South Carolina State. That has 2 minutes left in the game, so it looks like it's going to go to the wire. And then again, as I told you, have Maryland Eastern Shore and North Carolina Central versus Coppin State. Anything gives you pause in terms of what may be up in store for these semifinals on the men's side for the MEAC?
Well, I expect Norfolk to go ahead and come on out of their semifinal, and now you have Central versus
Maryland Eastern Shore.
Maryland Eastern Shore. You expect Central to win that game, and just because you expect Central to win that game, Maryland Eastern Shore will be in the finals against Norfolk.
I love it. It is one of those deals. Let me go to you, Charles. As you talk about the MEAC semifinals, let me also give you a key into the semifinals for the SWAC league. One of them is locked up. That is that 2 versus 5, Texas Southern versus Grambling. Texas Southern has handled Grambling this year. Grambling is playing really well of late, or at least they play well against Southern. They're going to be feeling good about themselves. They're going to want this opportunity to see if they can get over to a championship game. And obviously you have the number 1 seed, Braves, and waiting for the nightcap of 3 versus 6, which is FAMU and Alabama A&M. What are your thoughts in terms of the potential semifinal matchup heading in tomorrow, what you're hearing before I do that, you still have Morgan State up 74-71 with 147 left in that matchup.
Definitely, I want to catch a nice gap without running in water in there. But I think going forward, this is Texas Southern tournament to lose. I think can throw so much height at you and can beat you up on the board. It's sort of the same thing. Going forward, they did it for second thing with those seconds. So when I take a look at the height of Texas Southern, their bigs, their front court, I think it's going to be troublesome for the rest of the team.
Good stuff, good stuff. Let me remind everybody that follows us in terms of the MEAC. Saturday, all this will be decided, and you will have the women's championship on ESPN Plus at 3:30. The men's championship will be on ESPN 2 at 1 o'clock. And for the SWAC, at 1:30. That's ESPN Plus, and you have the men's championship at 5 o'clock, which will be on ESPNU. We'll be here live to cover it all. We might sneak and give you a little tidbit. We might do something short and sweet on Saturday. We'll see how that goes. Stick with us and just keep your attention early. We'll see if we can put a little update to see if that can get done. Just kind of do a prelude to a championship of what to watch out and our thoughts. When everything's settled and all the dust settled between the second half of the quarterfinals today, moving into the semifinals tomorrow, we'll give you that. Before we close out, Charles, give us the final update that you have.
Yeah, 20 seconds left here in the third quarter of action. Texas Southern is up on 7, 48-45.
Man, it's a close that's going down. All of y'all, after we sign off, make sure you go in and watch these games, whether you're watching the MEAC or the SWAC. Let's make sure we do our part by signing in and watching when we can on the streaming platforms. If you're not here, live in the area and coming to the game yourself. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. Appreciate the Professor Drew behind the scenes getting it done, but also coming in as that clinical professor as he does. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Shout out to Gaati Werema. Hope you enjoyed that interview in terms of our guests giving you some insight in terms of some of those that have brought down the net themselves and experienced a championship in the Southwest Athletic Conference and playing overseas as a professional. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1, Facebook, Instagram, Sports Lab on YouTube and Facebook. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Lecture.
Dismissed.
Yeah, holla.
The Home Depot. 90.